We are getting ready for a crazy week in the markets. We got earnings, we got Fed decisions, we got all sorts of data coming in. So, a lot to talk about today on Money Never Sleeps. Thank you for joining us today, everybody. As we get going, you know the drill if you've been here before. Hit that like button. If you're new and you enjoy what we say, subscribe to our channel while you're at it. And remember that nothing Kevin or I says is financial advice. Please do your own research for making any sort of financial decisions. Kev, we got a crazy week ahead of us. Jobs data coming in left and right. We have the U.S., Bank of England, Bank of Japan all making rate decisions as well between Wednesday and Thursday. We got some Bitcoin conference stuff to go over. It is going to be a fun week in the markets. How are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing great. Markets were kind of weird last week. They seem weird now. In some sense, I feel like the markets are actually trading technically now, which is a good thing. But the bad thing is where the technicals are pointing us towards, who knows, right? That might not be a good thing there. But I'm feeling pretty good. I think this is going to be a fun week, going to be some volatility. It can go either way, in my opinion, but I'm excited and I'm glad that we're going to be covering it.
Yeah, me too. Fixed GM, thanks for joining us
Thanks for
today.
joining us, man.
Let's go through kind of the week ahead, and then we can look back a little bit at the weekend because there was quite a bit to go over there. So, rest of this week, tomorrow we get the JOLTS report, so job openings, and we'll also get earnings after the close from Microsoft, AMD, and Uber, amongst many others. On Wednesday, we get private sector employment. We have the FOMC rate decision. Jerome Powell will speak. Earlier in the day, however, we'll also get a decision from Bank of Japan. So that'll happen when most of us in the U.S. are asleep. We could be waking up to some craziness Wednesday, and then after the close and after Powell speaks, we get Facebook, Samsung, Mastercard, Alibaba, amongst others, reporting earnings. Thursday, and we're just a Thursday now. We have Bank of England making their rate decision. We get earnings, more big tech earnings from Apple and Amazon, and then on Friday is the big jobs report that's going to have unemployment, hourly wages, how many jobs were added last month. So a lot going on, a lot that is going to be impacting the price of those sweet tokens that we love so much. Where do you think the biggest mover is going to come from all of those different things I just listed off?
Bank of Japan, 100%. I didn't even know. I knew that the rate decision was coming soon, but that being the case, 12 hours before the F1, the trading day starts for most of the U.S. That's a big one, man. We talk about it all the time, and we say that there's only one thing that separates 1989 to 1990 for Japan from where we are currently, and that's that they haven't raised rates yet. They've talked about it, but the second they raised rates, we've seen what happened. It was like a lost decade for Japan. They bottomed out in 2008. It was 18 years, and it was just absolute chaos. And it's not unlikely that that could happen again, right? Or at least the start of it. So what we know what happens in the equity markets is that when they do raise rates, they probably try and, offload some of their balance sheet. In that case, that's probably U.S. debt. And then if we know that Janet Yellen already is having a lot of problems issuing, treasuries, especially at the longer end of the curve, she's been issuing a lot less than necessary. That's going to cause a huge liquidity problem in the system. And the funny thing is, too, this is just historically, August is one of the worst months possible for liquidity in markets. It's when we see the lowest amount of volume, and it's when we see, tons of money just absolutely start to take profit. Last year, think about where we were going into September last year. It was almost like a 10% drop from the height in the summer, and it was all of August that was just downhill. So this is going to be a very interesting decision because I do think that they are going to have to raise rates in order to save their economy, to save the yen. It looks like they're kind of doing shit now to save the yen, but in that case, that's going to throw off the forex balances are going to be completely off globally. You're probably going to see other currencies just weaken significantly, and you're going to probably see a huge shock to the treasury system in the U.S., which means that the only place where there is money right now is the equity market. So you might see that inflows go from equities into treasuries. Again, that would probably take place over a course of a few weeks, though.
Yeah, I'm looking at the NASDAQ, the S&P on the monthly, and it is ripe for a pullback in August. Everything is in the overbought territory. We've had a lot of green over the last 10 months, so it wouldn't be too shocking there. Anything else? We've seen disappointing earnings so far from big tech. Coming into last week, we saw the Tesla earnings were not met with rave reviews. Same can be said for Google. So with Apple, Amazon, and Facebook, three of the other Magnificent Seven, do you think that if we see, the sell-off could be pretty epic if those three come in under expectation, because that would just leave, we'd be down to what, Netflix and Nvidia for the other Magnificent, or Microsoft and Nvidia for the other Magnificent Seven?
Yeah. It's going to be, Microsoft is the big one. It absolutely is. That's going to be the most important one, I think, of the remaining tech ones. But if we look at the stocks that are just over frothy, that make no fucking sense for the valuation, Meta 100% is going to be one that they don't hit their targets, or they have a bad outlook, or they just provide no outlook for Q3. Watch out below for that. Again, these are the top 7 stocks that are weighted in the indexes. They're going to impact the indexes the most. So if you see one of them fall, there's a good chance we'll probably start to see some of the other ones fall and sell off. We know that there's been a lot of inside selling. Jeff Bezos with Amazon, especially too, with earnings coming out Thursday. That's going to be very interesting to see if that stock does take a bit of a hit, because I don't necessarily know someone who's going to be selling their own personal stock to buy back right when earnings come out, right? I think it'd be more likely that he would hold on to it and then sell if he were in a position to think that the market wasn't going to sell off on what they were expecting. And again, this is just insiders doing what they do best. But I think that there's a good chance that if one or two of them come in, you're going to see the indexes fall a good amount. We've already seen NVIDIA right now. I'm going to pull this up real quick, just to show NVIDIA this article. And again, I've been covering NVIDIA because obviously I'm short NVIDIA, but NVIDIA stock swoon didn't slow CEO Jensen Huang's sales. This is from Barron's. He's at like $424 million right now for sales. And granted, that's not necessarily a ton compared to how many shares he does have. But the problem with this is he's not stopping, and the price doesn't matter to him, right? If that were the case, what happens when he starts selling off a lot more, like bigger lots, right? Like 1 million shares or something like that. Are people going to get concerned? Right now, I honestly think that there's a good chance that we're seeing some distribution within some of these companies. And this is all before key earnings. And we're already seeing the earnings coming out bad for Tesla. This could absolutely just be very nasty this week, after we get kind of the outlook for what could be coming the way of the other two tech giants in the Mag 7. So very interesting stuff, but I completely agree. This could be very volatile for the indexes, especially.
All right, let's talk about the Bitcoin conference, because that was all over social media. It was, a good amount on mainstream media as well. We saw on Saturday, Trump spoke at the conference. Leading up to it, it was interesting watching the price action leading up to it, because it definitely started to pump Saturday morning in anticipation of him talking. Then he began his speech for 30 minutes. Price started to come down. He made, the promises about firing Gary Gensler that got people fired up.
You can't even fire him.
The Bitcoin reserve that he wants to create. So a lot of hype got built up there. We also heard from Michael Saylor and his statement around the bull, the base, and the bear cases for crypto. Some absolutely monstrous price predictions that he said would be here by 2045. On the bearish end, $3 million per Bitcoin was his prediction.
Fuck him.
On the bullish side, it was like, I don't know, like 40 or $50 million per Bitcoin. So it was a lot of getting people psyched up. That got people jazzed. The thing to me that actually was probably the most important and the most bullish is Cynthia Lummis, the senator from Wyoming. And she plans to introduce legislation for the U.S. to buy 1 million Bitcoin over the course of 5 years. She called this our generation's Louisiana Purchase moment, because, stating that she believes this can help greatly reduce our national debt, which hit 35 trillion today, by the way. So her speech came at a pretty good time. So absolutely wild that we are now $35 trillion in debt for the U.S. That's just unreal. So there was a lot of excitement. We saw Bitcoin briefly touch 70K earlier today. It has now come back. It's in the mid 67s. But I mean, let me hear your take on, Saylor, Trump, Lummis, all of the speakers that got people really hot and bothered on Saturday.
Every single word of all three of those people pissed me off completely. Just based on when we're talking about crypto. And again, it's such a fucking, you get these events and these people talking about like Trump saying, never sell your Bitcoin. It's like, man, you're saying that's pretty easy to say when the price is hovering just above 65,000, right? That's very similar type of mentality that people had back when Bitcoin's price was at 64K back in 2021. Even so, right before the ETFs, when it was trading at like, what was it, 60? I mean, almost it was in the 70s. It was 70,000 or so. You hear these things from these people, and of course Trump's not going to be bearish on Bitcoin. He's at the convention. They paid him money to show up, and he's going to be saying everything that is going to just garner votes from the young people. Because again, I think the younger generations have seen how the other party has kind of handled crypto, and we're kind of seeing with Gary Gensler the failures of a lot of those administrations and ways that they probably would want the crypto industry to go in a completely different direction. Trump just has to say, I like Bitcoin, that we're going to do all this, we're going to buy this. He's got 535 people he's got to go up against in order to pass any legislation. They can veto it at any point, right? This is how the legislative process works. The other thing is too, him saying that he didn't want any Bitcoin transactions to be taxed. That will never happen. I'll be honest with you. It will never happen in the United States, right? They're tracking the amount of money that is being sent from place to place. And because you have to file taxes, that helps out reduce a lot of, kind of like criminal activity in the United States. It weeds a lot of that out. So there's no incentive for them to not tax those transactions. So I think what we're hearing a lot is a lot of great ideas that we all kind of like. They sound amazing, but are just not practical by any means or any stretch of the imagination in the United States today. Maybe 100 years ago, if Bitcoin was around, possible, right? I just don't see this happening right now with the people that we have in office. And that's not a bad thing. There are other places in the world that probably are going to be more bullish for Bitcoin. But we also have to remember Trump has to win in order for him to even get to the point where he can kind of introduce these things. And then we have to wonder if he's going to even carry out any of the stuff he said. Michael Saylor, batshit nuts. I have nothing positive to say there. Bitcoin's going to go up. I think he's going to be a very rich man, but just sometimes there are people who are smart with their money, and then there are people who are smart with their mouth. He is not smart with his mouth. And we talk about Cynthia Lummis. That's just another person that I think is kind of coming in at the wrong time, talking about buying Bitcoin. Over the course of 5 years, sure, it's going to be a good idea for the United States to be here and be one of the top leaders. But again, I think that if you kind of let the market just be a free market and you don't have to get the government involved in the purchasing of assets, then people won't necessarily be speculating on the fact that things are going to go up or down from here. It's such a critical moment for, crypto. Again, I'm just talking about liquidity and talking about things that are happening in the global markets. That's kind of why I'm just bearish on everything that they all said.
Yeah, I'm not one to take Trump at his word when it comes to anything. So the people getting super excited about that is if it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to pump your bags.
Yeah, we don't know if he's going to win.
Elected. Like people, and this is not just a Trump thing. This is a Harris thing as well. People will say what they need to get votes and to get campaign donations. That's the name of the game.
Well, let's say this. Look what just happened. $2 billion worth of the Silk Road money was just moved on chain, right? And then that's when we saw the dump right around 70 million.
Yeah, but that was 000. Like, from what I saw, that was just moving into a custodial account. Like they're not actually dumping it.
Right. But I would say too, just for the price getting up at these areas, don't be surprised if you start seeing some of that value going down. I think people underestimate when people say one thing and do another. And I think people pretty much are kind of, they're based off of what happened at the Bitcoin convention, the sentiment. People have to understand that not everyone is betting with you. A lot of people are betting against you. And that's something that you have to keep in mind. This market, you have no friends in this market, right?
While you're on that subject, do you want to pull up and see kind of where the market is as far as who's short, who's long, where some of those key levels are right now?
Yeah. Oh, like on the CoinGlass?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, let me pull that up real quick. Yeah, let's take a look at the funding rates. I haven't actually looked at it. That's a good idea. It's probably flushed after that $3,500 swing that we got today, right? It went all the way down to like 66.9 or something like that. But looking at the funding rates currently, it's pretty neutral, man.
Yeah, it went down to 66.5.
Oh, even worse.
Even just a touch below that, actually.
This is really strange. To me right now, it looks like you got a few shorts out there, maybe, but nothing too crazy. Looking at this across the board, let's look at the liquidation levels. Now, the reason why you might not be seeing a lot of this happening is because either people are more just buying spot, or we're just not seeing enough liquidity in the system that we are seeing major moves in either direction, right? That's two things that we keep in mind. But if we look at the liquidation map and see where Bitcoin is on the past day, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. People probably shorted around 70K. There's price goes back up there. We're looking at about $3.7 billion that we could liquidate. I mean, if we go all the way to about 72.8, it's $4.5 billion. But I mean, to the downside, there's not a lot of people building up. There's not a lot of liquidity down here, which tells me there's not a lot of people going short. There was definitely a lot of people going long around the Bitcoin convention. And even so, when the price dumped here, idiots probably using high leverage. And again, I'm saying idiots because you will not win in high leverage in a volatile week like this. It's going to be very hard unless you have your limits. And even if you do have your limits, good luck. I just saw that on was it Mexi Global or BitMEX, one of them. XRP went to $2. Went to $2 out of nowhere and then went right back down to like 60 cents. So it's like you're going to get liquidated so fast, and it could be as stupid as a glitch, but who knows if you'll get that money back if there's a mistake. But looking at this on the 1 day, let's look at the 7 day and see where things are lining up for the rest of the week. I mean, it makes a lot more sense to, at this point, to wipe out all of the short liquidations to about 72 or so. And then all the people that are going long, I mean, if you want to get a lot of people going long over here, it makes a lot of sense that afterwards you would see some type of correction down into the 60s. But if that's the case, we're just going back and forth, just wiping out liquidity. There's all the way to here, 4.28 billion. And then if we want to go all the way down to like say 60,000, there's 6.24 billion. A lot more to the downside than to the upside, but you're already this close to the upside. I would assume that it would take everything out. And when we look at the Bitcoin structure too, it seems like we were due for a correction. Still a good chance that we could go for all-time highs, and that could be the squeeze that gets a lot of people that were short out of the market. So that could happen as quick as 1 day. It could happen, over the course of the week. I think we're in the prime conditions to see a lot of that happen too. It's FOMC, Bank of Japan liquidity going into the monthly close. Like there's a lot of things that could definitely shift this market, and it might not even be the most bullish of thing, but it might just be a liquidity grab that screws a lot of people out of their positions.
All right, let's move into some charts, if you would.
Yep.
How about let's start with Microsoft, since they are reporting earnings tomorrow. Got one of the biggest market caps, if not the biggest in the world right now. So second behind Apple, probably a good place to start.
Absolutely. Let's go Microsoft. And let me just pull this out. This is on the daily. You can see that we've had a pretty good correction, right? From July, like the July 8th or so, bounced all the way down to 10%. So it's had a good drop. Currently sitting at about 9% or so down from this height. We've had 5 waves to the downside. You expect that we're going to have some type of corrective move to the upside, right? This could be a short, B wave that we're expecting, and it's part of a larger correction, 5 waves, and that's just the first of the A wave. But if we look at this on, let's say, the 4-hourly, get some more clue as to what's happening. Maybe this is the first wave of this corrective wave. We see a little bit of a dip before earnings, and then when earnings come out, maybe we test the 50 moving average, right? And they can put us around 440. That's if we're expecting like just lukewarm earnings. If it's blowout, obviously it's gonna short squeeze and might even get close to a double top, could even push higher. I do not put anything past this market right now because I do think that the lack of liquidity could cause a lot of people to get trapped, and it could just be a grab to squeeze people out of those positions. So looking at this here, the key thing to remember is that on the daily, you're below the 50 moving average. So that's going to hold its resistance around 437, 438 at this level. Maybe just put it right here so you guys can see it. That's going to be our level of resistance that we're just seeing for the time being. If that does not hold, there is a good chance that we will be coming down in the coming weeks to the 200 moving average. And that would have to hold in order for us to continue to say that we are in a bull market, right? The longer we continue to trade below the 50 and the 200, the more likely it is that the price is not going to be pushing up, that we're actually in a trend to the downside. So that's going to be a key indicator over the next few days to weeks to see how that adds up. Tomorrow we're probably going to get the post-market trading for Microsoft. expect it to be volatile back and forth. I mean, if it's good, you're going to break above this 50 moving average likely. Now, the question is if it holds, but if it's not good, I mean, there's a good chance that we could, instantly see us trading around the 200 moving average. What that does to the market, that's going to be the futures tomorrow night to see how that plays out. But it's not probably going to be the most bullish of scenarios if one of the top, literally, is this the wealthiest company in the world right now?
Second to Apple.
Apple's number one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, if the second largest company in the world is trading, it has bad earnings and it's testing the 200 moving average. I mean, just to remind you guys, in a bearish scenario, things aren't looking great. The economy's slowing down. The consumer isn't strong, and they're not necessarily, their output's not as high as they would like, or it has been for the past few quarters. That 200 moving average isn't far away from where it currently is. That's 6%. What happens if it loses that? Where are we going? Well, there's a lot of levels of support that just are pretty bare. I mean, you're probably coming to like 366. There's level of support down here around 330, 340. It's going to be very interesting to see if these moving averages hold. If they do not, I would be very concerned. Just looking at the weekly itself too. I know it's on the downside, but it kind of lines up with where the weekly moving average is too, around 400. Volumes too are going to be important, but I'm not convinced. I think tomorrow is going to be telling of it, and that's going to give us a good idea of what the trend is for Microsoft. And I think that also tells you the trend of the S&P and in the NASDAQ too.
Yeah, it's setting the table for the rest of the week. I do think, I'm not a day trader. Maybe there's a trade in there with Microsoft because, we're oversold on the daily, have been for a while, oversold on the weekly, and there is still some good upside there for a little scalp if you are looking to go that route. Not financial advice, yada yada yada. Let's look at, let's go in order of when earnings are coming out. So Wednesday, the big one will be Facebook, and after that we can go ahead to Thursday and look at Amazon and Apple.
Yeah, so Facebook is a bullshit one. Here's the thing that's really fucking crazy about this market, and this is why I want to say that the market is trading technically, but then I have to zoom out because I know we get caught up in the dailies, and that's what we've done when the price has been pushing up to the upside. It's been nonstop. Look at the daily chart, not necessarily the bigger picture. But when I look at the bigger picture for Meta, obviously it's been a hell of a run to the upside, right? We've had a really good run. I mean, this can be considered a 5-way move to the upside. Now we would anticipate a greater 3-way move to the downside. That would just kind of be logical. But there's some places here that are very, very scary for this. So just pulling this up here, what I initially see is that we have a bit of a parallel channel going on here. Let's get that in there. Something like this. Yeah, something like that. I've been trading in it. It's not a bullish flag. That's more of a bear flag in this parallel channel. If it does break from it, you're probably coming down to 405, which is ironically where this major gap that we got from, I think, the previous earnings, right? The March earnings or the Q1 earnings. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Q1 earnings that we got from here where the price just shot straight up. There's nothing you can do about that. It's very possible that we're not even that far from that. Like from where we are here to there, it's 12-13% drop in the market. But I mean, you're very close to the bottom of this parallel trend line. So there's a good chance that you lose that. You're probably going to lose the 200 moving average and you come down to this. And hopefully that holds the support. Because if it doesn't hold the support, you're coming down even a little bit lower to about 385. And, after that, you're looking at some of these levels that are from January of 2022 and this double top that we got here, of July 2023 and October 2024. So from where we currently are to where this price could go if we lose that 200 moving average, it's could be 30% or so. Think about how that's going to impact the NASDAQ, how it's going to impact the S&P. That's the bear case. The bullish case is the earnings are great. They have a great outlook. You're just going to go to the top of this parallel channel over the next few weeks or today. I mean, it could even be as very similar to what we have here, this earnings gap. It could be just straight to the upside. And, we're looking at that as 17-18% to the upside. But here's the thing. I don't want to trade this, getting caught into it, right? This is a very dangerous one, too. We saw how much it shot up on earnings in that first Q, what was it? It was in February, so I should say it's Q4, right? Q4 earnings, I should say. And then here we are now waiting for Q2 earnings. It seems like, this could go one way or the other, but I don't like that it's below the 50 moving average. And I don't like that we're very close to this 200 moving average at the bottom of this parallel channel. Because if that doesn't hold and earnings are way worse than we expect, we're looking for support below, and that's going to definitely impact probably the outlook of what happens on Thursday with Apple and Amazon. I don't think that's a crazy statement to make.
All right, let's keep it moving. I want to go to Amazon next. I mean, if you talked about Jensen selling a bunch of Nvidia shares, Bezos is selling off shares left and right for
$15
billions
billion.
of dollars. So let's go ahead and look at Amazon. It had an interesting. There's like this 6-day period where 5 of the days it all closed like it was all right around that $200 per share mark, and showing a lot of resistance there. It's like a flat top right there on that chart.
Absolutely. I mean, this is not necessarily the most bullish. It just kind of tells you that, all right, this is where, a lot of the sell wall definitely is at that 200 level. Had never been there before, if I'm not mistaken. And because of that, not enough buyers were coming in up here. And there's probably where Jeff Bezos sold off a good chunk of his portfolio, his personal portfolio, I should say, not Amazon selling off stock, right? Completely different scenarios. Now, the interesting thing too is the buyback window is kind of open now for some of these companies. Why aren't they buying back some of their stock at some of these values? Is it because they think they can buy it back a lot cheaper? Is it that what Jeff Bezos is kind of doing here? We don't know. But at the end of the day, that is his baby. It's Amazon, and he's selling off a shit ton at this point. Now you're below the 50 moving average. I mean, we could arguably say that him and any other insiders in Amazon selling could have facilitated some of this rejection here at this $200 level. But the thing is, we're waiting for this, little bounce that we would anticipate to see if we're going to push up higher than this 200 level, or if we're going to get a double top. If we fail, if we just don't get that and we end up going lower, then you're probably not going to see that major bounce that's going to push you up above the 200 level. This could be the top of the market for it. Again, level of resistance right now, 187. You haven't even you tested it one time, you got rejected right from it. 169 or so, that's going to be a huge level to hold. If it doesn't hold, then you're coming down to, close this gap at about 160. So we could see potentially to the downside, I would say between 7.5 to, almost 13% for Amazon. If we're looking at this to the upside, I would say the 50 moving average at least would probably be taken out if it was a good earnings call. So about 2% move to the upside. And if we really wanted to get, excited about things, 5% to close this little gap here, or we could say, 9% to hit this double top at 200. But I would have a funny feeling that this would probably serve as huge resistance once again. They don't trade that many days at that level, and probably just time weighted adjusted, dumps on the market to the point where now we're seeing a lot of people, less demand, less buying power come in, more sell volume. So again, the big tech stocks are all trading below the 50 moving average, which tells you that if it finds resistance on the 50 continuously, you're going to have to find support. That 200 is probably the one where you're going to see this become a magnet. So that's just Amazon. What was the last one? Apple?
Apple, yeah. We've, you've probably seen the headlines of the sales for the Vision Pro didn't go too great. Who could have seen that? A $3,500 headset in this economy? I mean, come on, seriously. But maybe we're going to see some struggles. They are one of those few that is still above the 50,
right?
But maybe that changes when they release earnings on Thursday.
Yeah, and I think we need to also kind of take this with a grain of salt. The reason why they're above the 50 moving average is because what happened here? They announced a major fucking stock buyback, and it just shot the price up. I mean, in 2 days we were up, 7.5%, and then the next day we were up almost 3%. But it's a $19. I mean, it's almost a $20 swing in Apple's price from these 2 days that we got back in June. Shot the price up. It was a major squeeze. There's a good chance that we were probably going to break from this parallel channel, but this definitely changed the course of things here. Now we have to question if the 50 doesn't hold, is there a good chance that we could fill this gap all the way down? And look where we end up, right about the 200 moving average at 191. So if earnings are bad and outlook is bad, and again, let's be honest, where is Apple kind of missing the market right now? It's in China. They're not selling as many products out there. And I know people are saying, oh, that's not a big deal. It's like they tell you it's not a big deal, but it is a big fucking deal. A lot of people probably aren't going to be upgrading for a new phone unless it's like a free offer or something like that. I don't anticipate people will continue to buy Apple, but I just don't think that it's going to be the demand that you once saw back in like 2020, 2021 when people had a lot more money. we're just seeing a different world economy right now, and because of that, you're going to start to see earnings, which I think should be trading technically, should be more logical. Bad news is bad news. I would anticipate that if we were to go bad, we're looking at like a 12% drop in Apple, maybe not immediately, but over time, because this 50 moving average would likely be lost in that case. And this is thin air right here. There's nothing necessarily to support that until we get to the 195 to the 191 levels. Now let's make the bullish case for it. There's a gap right here at 232. So say everything is great. Over the course of time, there's a good chance we could see, a 6.5% move to the upside. We could even see a double top here at 237. I doubt it, but again, stranger things have happened. Bad earnings, market reacts completely opposite because people are positioned in the wrong way. Anything could happen at that point, but those are kind of the levels that we're looking at, given the earnings, if they're good or bad.
All right, let's wrap up our last one. Let's do Bitcoin. Let's take a look at how that puppy is performing right now. Still in that $67,000 range. Where are we headed next?
Yeah, I mean, we're sitting at 67.4, so it's definitely pulled back to where that 67.5 level or 66 level, right? It was earlier. Yeah, so it's in the middle right now. We anticipated that there was going to be a pullback, and the thing that was kind of scaring me, and again, I'm saying scaring me, but it doesn't really matter because you got major resistance ahead. Is I was expecting this to be a corrective pattern where you see, break out of this parallel channel, maybe come down to the 50 moving average, and then you put in a little bit of a higher high. Maybe 75.6 is the level that we find major resistance at. And the main thing is because we're looking at a historical chart, right? I've talked about this before. You have these levels where it touches the top of these. And once it gets to that, that is pretty much signifying that is the top of the market, because I think it's part of this larger structural trend that we're seeing with Bitcoin and crypto. Kind of lines up also with the USDT dominance, where we would get a double touch of this bottom trend line, which we have seen significantly in the past. The low in April, the high in April, and also the height in November of 2021. So those major ones got a double tap. So far we got one touch. I think we're going to get a second one if Bitcoin's price is bullish. Now, flip side, let's say things are bearish, right? It doesn't get, it's not a bull market. We're looking for something far worse. Let's pull up the same chart. No, I said pull up the same chart and I grabbed a different one. Idiot. Here we are. Say we hit that, that's fine, but we're probably looking at 40,000. That would be my guess for a major pullback in crypto. It's and I'm not saying overnight, but I definitely think that there's a good chance that we could be seeing that 40,000 level. I thought that when we were breaking some of these lows here, like 57, we went all the way down to about 53, which we had kind of been keeping an eye on. At the time, we said that 40, I think it was like 40,000, 41,000 or so, which would have put us like right around this level here, would have been major support. We put a line through there so we can watch it over the next few weeks. This would have been offering a major level of support. I don't believe this 100% is, this is first off organic. I also don't think that this is going to hold very well if we were to pull back. Second, you lose that 53 level. I do think that you're probably going to come down somewhere around this $41,000 level. Now, that move from the top of here, it's be bullish to bearish. It's a 45% drop in the crypto price. That's a major fucking move. But that would kind of coincide with things getting worse, right? The indexes start losing money, Japan raising rates. This is something that's going to be problematic if liquidity becomes a major problem, which we know it is. But the question is, when does it become a major problem in practicality? Maybe soon. So what do I expect from this? Worst case scenario on the conservative side, I'll say the moving averages where we're going to want to keep an eye on. So I'll say, 59 right now. The 200 moving average is going to be key level of support to the downside. Like I said, you lose that, you lose the 53, you're going far lower. But to the upside, I do think that there is an argument to be made that we can hit 75.6, 75.7, top out, and that's the end of the market for Bitcoin, the height of this entire market that cycle. And we're looking at the monthly as well, and the monthly is pretty topped, and it looks like we are starting to get these major wicks up here. Get rid of this ABC. These major wicks that are showing you that this is major resistance. Again, resistance. You got a lot of them right here. Question is, how far does it go in the months to come? Anyone's guess, but it probably is going to be it's probably not going to be the most bullish price action to the upside. But that's just my opinion. Anything could change on that front at any given day. But right now, I'm more bullish, I think, on Bitcoin than I probably should be.
All right. That is going to do it for today's show. We appreciate those of you who joined us. If you have not yet, like, subscribe, drop a comment if you're so inclined. We'll be back on Wednesday after Powell gets done speaking. We'll cover FOMC decision, Japan rate decision, Powell presser, the earnings that we're going to get tomorrow. I think probably while we're doing the show, some more earnings are going to come out. So Wednesday should be a fun one. I'm looking forward to it. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Stay safe in the markets, and we'll see you next time.
Take care, everyone.